Hi dosers, we're here again in the Hall of Faith, and today our guy is Moses. And I think anytime we can talk about Moses, there's like this long list of these really, really cool things to do, and you're like, duh, Moses had made it in the Hall of Faith. He's like this awesome guy. He got to be part of all of the plagues that was going on. He was there for that. He got to be spoken to by a fiery, burning bush. He was the guy who, when God met him on the mountain and he came down, he had to veil his face because it was too shiny because it saw God's glory. Like, what is this guy's life? He was given the 10 Commandments. I don't know. There's like all of these things about Moses. Oh, the Red Sea. How could I forget? Classic. But there's all these things about Moses that make him like, he should be famous. He should be in the Hall of Faith. And then when we come to Hebrews 11 and we read about why Moses is in the Hall of Faith, I am absolutely taken aback for the things that I think he should be famous for and what he's given credit for here. So join me in Hebrews 11. We're going to be reading from verses 25 to 27. So come with me. It says, he chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. He regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt because he was looking ahead to his reward. By faith he left Egypt, not fearing the king's anger. He persevered because he saw him who is invisible. The reasons why Moses is in the Hall of Faith, this famous part about why all these people should be remembered in high esteem for their faith, these are the two reasons. It says this: because he was looking ahead to his reward. And then it says, because he saw him who is invisible. And it's not all these like major miraculous things that Moses got to be a part of why he's in the Hall of Faith, but it's simply because he was able to hope in the invisible. He was able to hope in the God that he could not see. He was able to hope in the future instead of the temporary. I love it in Hebrews 10, just the passage right before this. It calls us to hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. And there's this part in Moses' story that is kind of profound to me, where after Moses is met by God and Moses is totally unqualified and yet he's called, he then goes back, and after all these protests for why he doesn't want to be a spokesperson for God, he then goes and he does it, and he proclaims like what God is wanting to do in Egypt to Pharaoh, and then things get automatically worse for him. They just get awful. The slave drivers are harder. All of what's happening to the other Hebrews around him, like life gets harder, life gets worse. And yet here in Hebrews, what he's remembered for is being able to hold on to what he hoped for instead of his current circumstance. When you and I are faced with trial or struggle, and I'm confident my worst day hasn't come yet. It might have for you, or your worst day is still further down the road. But through people like Moses and through people in the Hall of Faith, and thank God for the body of believers as I look at faithful women and men who've gone before me, I'm able to see that there's a way, instead of allowing something to come and absolutely change my perspective, or something to come and absolutely knock me off my feet, where we could ask, is God good? Is God really good, or is he holding out on me? Is God actually faithful, or has this been the moment where he's chosen to not be faithful in all of history? We get to look at Moses as somebody who practiced like holding on to the hope that we profess, and we can choose now, when that day comes, that's where I want to be. Maybe this could trigger something in us when the moments gets hard, where we get to realize like, oh, this is where I hold unswervingly. This is where I'm reminded to see him who is invisible. This is where I'm reminded that Christ is of greater value than the treasures of Egypt, because I'm looking ahead, because I'm looking at heaven, because I'm looking at the cross, because I'm looking at Jesus. So join me in that challenge today.